Now, pardon me on my language on this, but there is a scene where Jonah Hill compares getting a small government contract as an arms dealer to being a fat, retarded kid who gets an MVP trophy in soccer. And Jonah Hill claims that he is the fattest and most retarded out of them all. And let me tell you, that is an absolutely true statement in this film.
You got me woke up. The way you roll that, sticky like okra. Just let me coach ya, show you about my culture. It's a late night show like Conan.
Hi, I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that War Dogs is no perfect movie. So in War Dogs, we see the true life story of David Packhouse, played by Miles Teller, who becomes an international arms dealer along with his childhood best friend Ephraim Diveroli, played by Jonah Hill. And they quickly rise from doing small government contracts for the U.S. Department of Defense to making a $300 million job to supply hundreds of millions of AK-47 ammunition rounds, among other things, for the troops in Afghanistan. This movie is directed by Todd Phillips, who also directed Old School, The Hangover Trilogy, and Due Date. So I guess it kind of goes without saying that this is his most mature film he's ever made. And what I can say is that there are pros and cons to this. For starters, the true story of David Packhouse and Ephraim Diveroli is a very interesting story. If it is true that the two of them ran their own guns from Jordan to Iraq just to make the border change legal so that they could sell their guns without any protection from the troops, and the fact that they repackaged ammunition boxes, hundreds of them, just to save money and hide the fact that they're selling illegal Chinese bullets, it's hard to believe that things like that actually went under the government's radars for so long. And some of the directing styles, like, say, using slow motion to make a car chase for Fallujah a lot funny, or combining freeze-frame moments with narration in order to emphasize how important certain information is for a character, little things like that really work. But then there are other moments like dividing the movie into certain chapters with their own little title cards, or, I'm not even kidding, filming Jonah Hill firing off an AK-47 on a Dutch angle. It's little moments like that where I felt like they were taking themselves a little too seriously. And speaking of taking themselves seriously, if you go into this movie expecting a comedy in the vein of any Jonah Hill movie or in the vein of The Hangover, you're going to be incredibly disappointed because this movie is, I'd say, 80% a drama, and if it was a comedy, I completely missed the jokes because I barely laughed throughout this movie. Now, to his credit, Miles Teller does try his best to make the audience feel sympathetic for a lowly international arms dealer, but for me, monologuing over and over about having a wife and a newborn child to support does not make me automatically understand why he's selling guns to troops despite the fact that he and his wife go to rallies against the war. And it doesn't make us forgive the fact that he is lying to his wife all the time. If we ever feel sorry for him, it's because he's punching Jonah Hill in the face, which is completely warranted because Hill plays the most selfish, stupid, annoying sack of shit in his entire career, which is saying a lot because I've seen The Sitter, but he does everything despicable and unlikable about a Jonah Hill character. He invites himself over to people's houses, he lies his ass off to arms contractors by guilt-tripping them, and then insults them while he's getting paid, and Teller is always doing the hard work by traveling to certain countries like Albania to get the guns and ammunition, which could get himself hurt by other arms contractors, and Hill's just sitting in his office in Florida, snorting cocaine, and that's literally it. And there's no point in talking about Bradley Cooper, because he's in this movie even less than Jared Leto was in Suicide Squad. And he's only there to advance the Afghan plot, he has no development whatsoever, and he's just the one who sets Hill and Teller up to fall at the end of the movie. The other major problem is that we've seen the story told in the exact same fashion a million times before. The main characters go from underpaid minimum wage workers to spoiled rich brats with big fancy penthouses and a lot of drugs that they smoke all day. The wife is just there to say what he's doing is bad and really doesn't do anything until the end of the movie, and as you'd expect, they get caught and get sent to prison and all that good stuff. And I wouldn't mind these cliches if the story was interesting and was told in a different fashion. And to the movie's credit, it does become more entertaining because we spend a lot of more time of Hill and Teller in these scenarios interacting with other criminals and working their way up to the food chain. But the first 30 minutes, and even then it repeats itself over and over in the movie, is just Hill and Teller sitting down, looking at each other going, "Hey, do you remember this guy? Oh yeah, he did this, that, and the other thing." And they would just be reusing that kind of conversation over and over again just to give us exposition, as opposed to us actually seeing these characters interact with each other a lot more. What makes a movie like The Big Short work is that we get to see the lives of our main characters. The fourth wall jokes were very clever, very self-aware of how fictionalized certain elements were, and helped the audience understand banking concepts much more clearly for us to follow. And it was about characters who were exposing the corruption as opposed to just focusing on corrupt characters. War Dogs just borrows off of elements like Goodfellas, Wolf of Wall Street, Lord of War. But even though those movies had despicable characters and some predictable story elements, the characters had at least some humanity and had some charismatic actors performing them. For example, in Lord of War, Jared Leto is a very likable and charismatic actor, and he's given some story elements like watching two kids get executed by guns that he sold, and he takes out his frustrations by snorting drugs. We don't identify with it, but we can at least understand where he's coming from. Jonah Hill and Miles Teller are very good actors, but they're not given any humanity like that for us to care for them, and as a result, their performances just come off as them being assholes. And it stops the movie from being good and keeps it at what it is, which is just okay. And for that reason, I'm going to give War Dogs a 2.5 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, check out my other reviews at NoPerfectMovie.com. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care.